The following podcast is brought to you on behalf of the Saracen Supporters Association and is not an official product of Saracens Limited. Content provided voluntarily by our guests and contributors are of their own opinion, which may change over time and should not be taken as fact, particularly as the podcast hosts are regularly talking drivel anyway. If you've got some drivel of your own you'd like to share, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at fezcast_SSA. You can search Facebook for the Fezcast, or you can email fezcast.ssa@outlook.com.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the next edition of the Fezcast. And tonight, it's you and me, Barry, back again, or as we're beginning to call ourselves, Stadler and Waldorf. For those of a certain age who remember the Muppet Show.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for the benefit of anyone who doesn't remember Stadler and Waldorf, they're a pair of cantankerous, old but entertaining Muppets, and it's certainly not the first time I've been called one of those things.
Well, absolutely. It seems at the moment that we kind of like moaning on a little bit, don't we? But we've got some good news today, I think, to talk about, and we've certainly got. We are the bread between of the sandwich of the filling of a brilliant interview that myself and Joe did with Donna Rose, which is going to be in the middle part of this. But yeah, got plenty to discuss. Scarlets friendly in part one, and then part three we'll dissect the Six Nations. And yeah, I might just have another little win, shall we say? I'm actually quite sang-froid about that one. Actually, it's one of those, isn't it? But yeah, we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, first off, Barry, Friday night at the Stonex, obviously replacing the games that were lost when Wasps and Worcester went under. We played Scarlets. First things first, I saw a little bit of traffic online and whatever, people moaning that it wasn't the same standard. Well, what do you expect? You weren't going to get New Zealand turning up or the Barbarians or anything. And actually, I think it was a bloody good game of rugby.
It was thoroughly enjoyable. I have some sympathy for those who were upset at the way that it all panned out, but it's not the club's fault. They did what they could to get a replacement game on, and it wasn't perfect, but it was certainly an enjoyable evening's rugby, even if it was chuffing cold.
Well, I mean, I watched it from the comfort of the sofa at home. Obviously, you know, kept in the warm and everything like that. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Also, thoroughly enjoyed Jack Sorab and Alec Cleary on comms. They did a fantastic job. Alec, another one of those exuberant commentators that we discussed with Donna in the interview me and Joe did. But yeah, great stuff there. I suppose what we best have a chat about, though, is who impressed, because I think there were a number of very impressive performances, at least not in the pack.
Yeah, absolutely. There were some names that I hadn't seen before, so obviously we had, as I've seen him dubbed on social media, the Boonpole, which is quite an interesting term. But yeah,
he's a big lad, isn't he?
He is. But he was paired with Caden Pearce-Paul, not a name I'm familiar with, but he had an impressive game, and I think the entire back row did as well. I mean, they looked fresh, they looked keen to get involved in it, and I mean, it's hard to judge how strong the Scarlet side was. It was only really the Will Griff-John was the only name of theirs that I actually recognised. But yeah, the pack did very well. They certainly held their own against the Scarlets.
Indeed, and also I'm going to bring in another name, someone who we've been reasonably critical of over the last few weeks, but Manu Vunipola, I thought, had a very good game as well. Ran the game quite nicely.
The Manu Vunipola we saw on Friday was the same one we saw when he first burst onto the scenes 3-4 years ago now, and in the odd game here and there, and the one we saw in the Championship. And that was the one who's been unfortunately missing recently. And I mean, if he's capable of that, then maybe it's a question of injuries, maybe it's just a question of form and confidence. I don't know. But yeah, if he plays like that, then he's most certainly going to fill the number 10 shirt when that becomes available. And yeah, he had a great game.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as you say, I mean, I'm not sure whether the intensity was anywhere near what it would be against one of the top Premiership sides, and you have to take that into account. But yeah, there was plenty there to enjoy, and Toby Knight putting all of us slow, fat old number 8s to shame with that try. There's some serious pace there, wasn't there? And I mean, I think it obviously looks like, it was brought up in commentary where they're saying about how this is basically the same team that kind of got beaten 4 times out of 4 in the cup competition. Yeah, they've come when they've been playing against the same standard, and you've got to bear in mind that these are the Scarlets team will be similar standard to a lot of the team age group teams. So in 2 to 3 years' time, I think there's an awful lot of confidence to be taken from that sort of performance.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you've not seen it, folks, watch Toby Knight's try. Then as he accelerates away through the line, just remind yourself that's a forward, not a back.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about when we talk with Donna Rose, we mentioned Jess Breach and her pace, but you kind of expect that from a back, and from a back row forwards, that was frightening. And certainly, as much as I think I could come back and do a job for England at the moment, in my deluded mind, as it were, I think, you look at that, there's an awful lot of potential for the future, which is great.
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
Let's break there, Barry. We'll have a word from one of our advertisers, and then we'll go into the interview myself and Joe did with Donna Rose, which is absolutely fascinating. And then we'll come back and we'll dissect the Six Nations and everything that went on there. There was a bad result somewhere in the line of that, wasn't there, Barry?
You just the 1 or 2, yeah.
Anyway, over to our sponsors, and then me and Joe with Donna Rose.
You're listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracens Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fezcast.
Well, welcome to our big interview for this week's Fezcast. And joining myself and Joe is one of Saracens Women's Welsh international. Apparently you're a trained chef, but now work full-time as a carpenter, so a person of many skills. And also a brilliant pundit, I think, from the last game we saw on YouTube. Welcome to the Fezcast, Donna Rose.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Well, the first question, I mentioned punditry there, Donna. The Welsh, the Taffia, shall we say, the Welsh Mafia getting together and after the game versus Sale, giving the player of the match to your mate Georgia, like literally 20 seconds before Jess Breach scores her 4th try. I mean, I take it you're taking a bit of abuse from Jess over that one.
I knew this was coming. I knew I wouldn't get away with this. Yeah, I got a little bit of abuse from Jess. She's still at it, actually. But I told her, 4 tries, it's got to be 5 next time.
Well, absolutely, and I mean, we'll mention the game on the weekend up in the Billingham Rugby Club where Jess. I saw the video of one of her tries again. I mean, she's grease lightning, isn't she?
I actually didn't realise how fast she was until that game. I was like, wow, like she's fast. I'd give her a race though.
How much of a head start would you want? Or are you just going to take her out the ankles on the start line?
I reckon 60-metre head start might just make us take over the finish line at the same time.
Fair dues. Well, look, Donna, I mean, you're part of a successful Saracens team at the moment, although you're out injured, and we'll talk about that at the moment. But how's feelings in the camp at the moment? You know, there's a bit of a time where things weren't going perhaps right. We were bringing back players from World Cup duty, and it was perhaps not working fantastically well. But, you know, recent weeks, performances and results have been going the right way. So the feeling must be good in camp.
Yeah, everyone was a little bit quiet when they came back and tired, I think, and mentally drained. Obviously, the England girls were mentally drained. But giving them a few weeks, they've all gelled together, and they're, you know, there's laugh and jokes now. There's, you know, where they're getting on, and they're a little bit happier now we're winning. That's all I can say, really, is they started playing the Saracens way now, and that's obviously we're all happy about that, and we're winning, so that's what matters.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know I spoke to Leanne at one of the games just after the guys had come back from New Zealand, and they were, you know, understandably disappointed. The English girls obviously went out there with the intention of winning that tournament and feel a little bit like, you know, they didn't succeed, where we all know, I mean, every team that went out there raised the profile of women's rugby hugely, created an amazing tournament. It was played brilliant. I mean, Joe, you've got to agree with that, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, I was awake at silly o'clock in the morning most weekends watching all the games, but you know, there was some class performances, I think, both from the northern and southern hemisphere teams. You know, it was really competitive to see. But Donna, how did you rate your experience out there? Because I know that you went out there and were excited to go. So tell us a little bit about your experience and how you felt whilst you're out there. I know the injury notwithstanding, how it was for you.
I didn't know what to expect, really, and I went out there with, you know, the job in mind, and to get as far and prove that Wales is up there, you know. But it was a really good experience. I wouldn't say, if I could turn back clocks and go back, I would say probably take everything around me in more, because my mind was just on the job the whole time, you know. But it's a beautiful place. It's great. I just remember they love rugby out there, and I just remember walking down the road and you'll get beeps from people in their cars and waving at you, and it's a lovely country to be in, to be honest. Yeah,
I went out to New Zealand, I think it was 2009, and one of my endearing memories is going to see Chiefs play the Blues down in Hamilton. And other than seeing it in the row behind me, a mate of mine who I used to play rugby with over here, who'd moved out to New Zealand, and surprising him intensely. But it was every time the opposing team took a kick at goal, there was a bloke in a cherry picker with a mullet and a chainsaw behind the posts. And you just set the chainsaw, off it go. You know what I mean? We all talk about having respect for the kicker. Over there, no respect. I mean, it is a religion. And yeah, you're right, New Zealand, what a beautiful country it is. But perhaps back to Saracens now, though. We got away to the DMP, 73-0, was it, I think, in the end? I mean, that's a huge thing. But what was really good to see was a number of people who actually made the journey up there to support the team. I mean, the support that you guys get from Saracens, it's got to be huge, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the best parts about being with Saracens. You know, we have a great fan base and we feel appreciated. You know, the same faces turn up week in, week out, and you know, we love it. We love our fans a lot, and we appreciate them 100%.
I know you got someone like Joe taking fantastic photographs. You managed to get, was it the last time actually? Was it Jess Breach, one of Jess Breach's tries? You got a fantastic shot of Joe.
Oh God, we're going to keep talking about these tries.
It was the first, second, or fourth try, but it was one of them.
Oh God, here we go.
Actually, I mean, to be fair, I mean that game, the performance from and all joking aside, Georgia had an amazing game. And I mean, you guys, Donna, you'll be too young to remember a player who used to play for France many years ago, Jean-Pierre Rive, who had a shock of long blonde hair. And his trick used to be that he'd get a cut really early on, and you'd suddenly see this open side flanker all over the place with blood through his hair, and he was always noticed. And Neil Back at the start of his career had long hair, and he used to do the same thing, always get a cut. And you got Georgia with her pink bow. You can't help but notice her, particularly when she's, being as omnipresent as she was. But I mean, when you've got these players that are playing at such high levels, and you've got Marley Packer sat there who's come off the pitch one short of a hat trick, and if she hadn't tripped over her own feet, would have got a hat trick. Or you got Grace Moore on that day who played. I think she played second row, blindside 8 and outside centre. Surely that just drags everybody up to those high levels because you can't fail to.
Yeah, I think even everyone at Saracens are aiming for the highest standards we can be, and we will push each other to them standards. Everyone wants to be on par with everyone, really. I think Marley is another level of herself. If I could be half the player she is, I'll be happy. Georgia, she's come into her own again. She came to us and she was a new flanker on scene, and she did really well. And then she kind of got put second row, and scrummaging takes it out of your legs. I'm not going to lie. That's my excuse anyway. And but she's been put flanking out, and she's everywhere again. I up in the commentary box, I have a camera that's, pretty close, and I see it from all different views. And all I saw was that pink bow everywhere. And, when you start seeing that everywhere, it just gets ingrained into your head. And I'm like, pink bow, well, who's your player of the match? Oh, pink bow, but she's come into her own, and she's starting to, set the standards high as well. And I think that's what's great about our team is it's not just the England girls that set standards, it's everyone, internationals or not. We all want to win.
Well, absolutely. And I think that follows through. And myself and Joe, before you joined us, Donna, were chatting off there. And we're talking about the amount of Saracens players who are in Six Nations squads. And we worked out there's 15 players in Six Nations squads. And then you've got players like yourself, Vicky Fleetwood, Zoe Harrison, Hannah Bottoman, who are out injured, who quite possibly would have been part of those squads. And then you've got Katha Jacobs been called up by the Springboks, Lottie Clapp for United States. The Canadian teams haven't been announced yet, but there's likely to be played. I mean, there's been talk about there being a women's British Lions tour at some point in the future. I mean, Saracens could probably put a British Lions team out themselves, couldn't they? And I mean, it's just amazing the amount of players that have gone on or are going on to be part of this international game now.
Yeah, exactly. That's why the standards are high at Saracens, and it's pushing these players through. Kelsey Clifford being one of these. She was a young gun coming in, and now she's in the Six Nations squad for England. And I have no doubt in my mind that she's going to go and get her first cap in the Six Nations. I'll eat my hat if she doesn't.
Your hat in. Let's hope not.
I'll eat my scrum out. I don't need it for a while anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, it is absolutely amazing. And also, obviously, a huge thing that Marley's been made co-captain along with Sarah Hunter. And I know myself and Joe had a discussion on WhatsApp about Sarah Hunter, and thinking, Simon Middleton stepping down as England coach after this Six Nations. Is Sarah going to be one of those players? Because I think the next step for women's rugby is definitely where you've seen top quality women's referees stepping up and the games being ref by women. Joy Neville, Holly, all these guys coming through and refereeing the women's game at the very top level. The next step is to find female coaches, isn't it, to go forward and to coach top club sides and international sides, and thinking perhaps Sarah Hunter's one of those players that, you know, at the end of her career is going to develop into a coach. Marley being co-captain, I think she's probably going to be captaining more in this Six Nations. Is that a fair comment to make?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Marley captains off and on the field, really. She is a leader through and through. I'm surprised that it's taken this long to co-captain, really. Sarah Hunter, I believe that, yeah, she will be one of them players that turn into a coach and coach a premiership team and take them to the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I think you're right. And, you know, but as I say, so many great players at Saracens. Really looking forward to seeing how this Six Nations plays out. From you put your Welsh hat on now, Donna, the one that you're perhaps going to eat in the in the future, but if Kelsey doesn't make it free. But I mean, Georgia and Cap both being called up. But I mean, from the Welsh point of view, what's going to be a good Six Nations for Wales? What do you think is the aim there in this tournament? Bearing in mind, obviously, England are still a fair distance ahead of everybody else, just by dint of the fact that they are pretty much fully professional there. You know, what are Wales looking at? Are Wales looking at saying, France, we want to compete with France, perhaps get second place maybe?
Yeah, I guess so. I think we're building towards the next World Cup. I think we've called some people in who might get their first caps coming in to the Six Nations. I think we're more looking forward to the World Cup than these kind of, yeah, absolutely. We all enjoy the Six Nations and we obviously want to do well. The players are doing well in the Prem anyway, so I don't doubt that we don't, you know, we could give it a go. Absolutely.
Right, yeah. I mean, and for the good of the game, I think it's important that Wales, Scotland, Ireland, and Italy, you know, do develop and develop even more, and all power to it. As much as being an England rugby fan, that does stick in the craw slightly. But I mean, yeah. But Joe, perhaps you'd like to have a chat to Donna about injuries and whatnot and what's going on there.
Yeah, before I cover that, I've obviously been down and watched some of the Welsh Six Nations game, having grown up in Wales myself. So I've been and watched you guys a fair few times. Do you think, and congratulations, by the way, on getting another full-time contract, you and G both in the last couple of weeks. So congratulations for that. But do you think these full-time contracts, and we're now starting to see the benefits from that, from a Welsh point of view, and the investment in Welsh women's rugby, from all of the other politics side apart?
Yeah, I actually do. It's not. These players have always had it in them and they've always been great players. But now we're given the chance to rest, recover and learn, you know, what we weren't good at. We get to learn and train for that. So, you know, we are that step up. I think the contracts for these other teams coming in is great for the women's game. And I hope that, you know, every game the Six Nations is as close as, you know, it's ever been, because we are starting to be on par with England. There shouldn't be any excuses there now. So,
yeah, I think that's probably been reflected in, as you said before, the Prem 15s league, where you've seen the likes of Gloucester Hartbury really shoot up this year. Exeter have maintained their standards from last year, but you're seeing a more competitive league now, with players moving around and those people having professional contracts with their home nations and stuff. But yeah, I agree with you. I think there's probably less excuses now for people to come, but it's really good that those professional contracts are there for you guys, and you're not having to, do 9, 10, 12-hour days at work and then having to train and then play at the weekends as well. So it's about time that started to happen for the girls, I think.
Yeah, my when I was working full time as well, that was hectic. I wasn't getting home until 2 a.m. I'd be working, getting up at 6, working as a carpenter until about 4:30, get home, travel to Wales, and then, coming back to work the next day. So having these contracts, it's amazing. It's amazing that it's coming in and the game's stepping up, but it's also amazing. It feels amazing that they believe in us, and I'm absolutely grateful for having one. And I just feel, they believe in me. So I've got to put 110 into this now.
Well, it's an interesting dichotomy, isn't it, about the difference in the men's rugby and women's rugby in Wales, is that you're feeling really valued. You've been given these opportunities, these full-time contracts. You look at the men and the turmoil within the game. I mean, how much does the situation in Welsh rugby, I mean, we could go on forever about this. So, I mean, I don't want to diminish what's going on there, but I mean, how you, as the women's side of it, look at the men's side, look at the turmoil, look at the politics that's going on. How does that affect you? Or do you just put it to one side in a box and say, it's nothing to do with us, we're just going to get on with what we do?
Yeah, obviously, as Wales, we're all as one. We support the men, whatever they do. But yeah, like you said, we've put that aside now. That's not us. We've got the Six Nations in hand now, so that's where where our mind's got to be and where we head.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's interesting. But I did say before, and Joe, I mean, Donny, we did ask, are you okay talking about the injuries? I mean, can you give us a sit rep on your particular situation at the moment? Because we haven't seen you play for some time now, and potentially it's going to be a little while before we see you back.
Yeah, I actually didn't do it in the World Cup. I don't know why that's written up, but I came back to Saracens and I just stepped and it just went. It's one of them things. I think, ACL. There's a few ACLs at the moment, and I think, maybe it needs looking into, women and ACLs and stuff, especially with football as well. Yeah, I've just hit today I actually tested 12 weeks. Did well on that. My right quad is actually stronger than my left, so I don't know how that's happened. But obviously rehab's working. I've just looking at the sheet down there, and I'm hoping to be back and to go with the girls wherever we end up going for October. That's my aim. That's realistic, basically. That's just over 9 months. It's been a struggle, I'm not going to lie, with the Six Nations team being announced and stuff, It has been a struggle to see all that, but I've got to remember, that's their job at the moment. My job is to get my knee better, to get back into that squad. Because yes, that's my job anyway, but that's also where my heart is and where I want to be. So these things happen, and I've just got to kind of put my head into the right place and get there.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I mean, one thing that we know about you, Donna, is that you are very vocal and very honest as well about mental health and the issues that you've had personally, but also the wider world of mental health. And I mean, I know for myself personally, we were talking off there, I've had a bit of COVID and it buggered up my running. I'm in training for the Rob Burrow Leeds Marathon, and it really, not being able to train and to run in the way that I want to, and also to the plan that I've got to get me to the marathon, it affects me in a bad way. If you have struggles and you not being able to do what you love doing, because I mean, yeah, okay, you get paid for playing rugby, and congratulations, and so you should be, but rugby's what you love doing, isn't it? And not being able to do that, that's got to be a real toll upon you. Is it? How do you deal with that side of things?
Yeah, I can't lie. This is probably the hardest thing I've ever gone through mentally. In my life, I've had help in everything, and I just admitted to myself that I was I was struggling really, and then Wales have been quite good, and I'm seeing the psych and stuff with them. So I've got a plan in motion, and keeping my head above the water. But there is down days where I drive home and I think, what, I'm done. I'm kind of done with this. Like this has ruined me, kind of thing. And I speak to my friends, and they're like, "No, you're not. You're going to come back bigger and stronger, and you're going to be top of your game." And then, speaking to Paris Phillips is one of my best mates, and I speak to her a lot about it. And she's really good for me. To be fair, she's always a positive soul. So, and also I'm training hard, and I'm actually there more than what I would be if I was playing. So I go there 5-6 days a week, and I have my rehab, and then I train hard, and then I'm on the watt bike or doing conditioning. So I'm still kind of getting that buzz of energy coming out, but obviously the real energy I like is tackling and being aggressive on the field, but that will come, won't it?
Well, I think also, I will say, I think it's saying things like being brave and everything is an often overused thing. But I know from my time when I played and when I was injured, I hated going and watching games to the extent I once actually managed to get sent off whilst on crutches. But that's a different subject. Aberdeen versus Didcot is one of those things that always happens. But the last thing I wanted to do was really be around people playing the game when I couldn't play the game. So for you to actually then put yourself forward, obviously, and do the commentary that you did against which, and I actually think you were absolutely brilliant. You and Alec Cleary, and Alec who did the commentary with Jack Sorab for the Scarlets game on Friday night. Absolutely wonderful, because you have this enthusiasm. But I think if you rather be out there on the pitch,
yeah.
It's a brave thing to do, I think.
Yeah, I do love watching the girls, and I'm excited to watch the Six Nations and watch how we Wales go. But obviously, I'd rather be out there. I'd rather be out there putting 100%. But I can just do my best to prepare them for the games, and if that's a conversation with some of them and getting behind them, or helping one of them train or anything, I'm willing to do it, because that's where my buzz will come from, is watching. You've helped that player train, so, or you've give that person advice and they go out there and smash it. So that's where I kind of get my buzz from at the moment.
Well, after you've done your comms, and you've done a couple now, I think you did the Sale one, and then you did
what's the one?
Yeah, that's right. Both which were brilliant commentaries, I have to say, with young Harry as well. Do you go back and feed that back in to the team, whether it's the coaching team or the players themselves, and do they take it all on board in the way that you mean to transfer it across to them? Because I bet you get good insight doing something different and seeing it from that perspective up there, and talking about it on air at the same time.
Yeah, I've got to be careful what I'm saying half the time. People will say to me, don't swear, like, calm down, because I'm very much, when I'm watching rugby, I'm on my feet screaming, at the TV or swearing. So a lot of people have told me not to swear and to calm down when I'm doing it. So I actually hold the mic away from my mouth, just in case. But yeah, afterwards, I'll go in and I'll talk to them about how they played, and say, I'm going to go back to Jess now. I walked into the changing rooms, and she just kind of looked at me, and I was like, sorry, I'm so sorry. She's like, no, don't speak to me, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, everyone was like, oh, sticking with your Welshie. I was like, no, it's just the pink bow is everywhere. I can't. And then I kind of had to go, you can't score tries without the dog work behind it. Like, kind of back myself up. But really inside, I'm like, yeah, you probably made the wrong decision there. But if I could give both a gold star, I would have. So.
Yeah. Well, you just need to remind Jess now that in future that she needs to wear a pink bow in her hair when you're commentating, and maybe
If she goes to the try line and does a D with her hands, I'll give it to her straight away.
It's a funny one. It's something I always have an issue with when I see back row, and I don't know whether you've picked up on this, Donna, if you've ever listened to Fezcast. I do mention every now and then that I used to play back row and number 8. But what I hate seeing is back rows who wear multicoloured boots. Because I think it's the most ridiculous thing ever. And, the last thing I ever wanted as a back row was to be spotted by the referee going in. And in the days when you could get away with sharpened studs and dancing soft shoe shuffles on opponents' backs and everything, I wore black boots. And, you make sure you're as unobtrusive as possible. You want to be the grey man, as it were, almost. But, yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? But
I think that's why G is obviously she protects her arm, and that she used to wear pink tape, but she's changed it to black now. If you've noticed that,
I asked her about that on the Fezcast when she was on a few weeks ago, and she may well have coughed herself that was the reason she'd wrapping on her arm so that she didn't get quite so easily spotted by a referee. Not that she ever admitted to doing anything that she shouldn't be doing.
Well, to the extent I used to have a club, a player and a coach in our club who used to bring in black dubbing, and if any player turned up with multicoloured boots, then he would chuck the black dubbing before the game and said, "Get that covered up," sort of thing. But Donna, I mean, thank you ever so much for joining us. It's been a fascinating chat with you about life and everything that's going on. And as I say, we thank you for your time and everything in speaking to us. Best of luck with the rehabilitation and everything with the injury. And as I say, we hope to see you back as soon as possible, obviously at the right time for you. And looking forward to hearing more of you on commentary, because I think you did an excellent job, and you have an exuberance and an enthusiasm for the game, which it comes over when you play, but also obviously in the commentary box as well. And anytime you want to speak to us guys in the Fezcast, we'll be more than welcome to host you again. But yeah, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I was waiting for my invite for ages now.
Apparently, Joe will say you've got a list of guys who want to come on, haven't you, Joe?
Yeah, they're all clambering to come on now, Donna. So, but we go from the top, the best.
Yeah.
So you're on now. You're on before Jess as well, so she can't.
Oh, don't have her on.
Yeah, you could score 4 tries, but wear pink ribbons or whatever, and you get on the Fezcast first. That's the way it goes, I suppose. So yeah, but no, Donna, thank you ever so much. As I say, we wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much.
Hi guys, I'm Alex Lewington and I'm a proud Looseheads ambassador.
I'm Sydney Gregson and I'm a Looseheads ambassador.
We're a rugby mental health charity working to tackle the stigma. You can find us at Looseheads on all social media channels or at looseheads.co.uk.
The Looseheads mission is to place a mental health lead at every rugby club. Get in touch now to find out more. Take care and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Enjoy the rest of the pod.
This is the Fezcast.
Oh, back again here with myself, Stadler, and Barry Waldorf. It's going to stick, isn't it, Barry? I think.
Absolutely.
But yeah, time for us to move on into the whinging. But before we do that, yeah, lovely interview that was with Donna. Someone who's very honest. Again, it's certainly something that comes out whenever we interview anybody from the club is the level of honesty and openness you get from the people. And yeah, it was good fun talking to Donna. And I think we didn't give her too much of a ribbon over giving Georgia Evans a Player of the Match award just before Jess Breach scored her 4th try. But yeah, obviously not as much ribbon as Jess is giving Donna at training at the moment either.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure if Donna could catch up with Jess, she'd probably be in more trouble, but never mind.
Well, yeah, as she said in the interview, I said she thinks she could take her on over a race, but she'd need a 60-yard head start, which
Yeah.
I think is actually being a bit generous, but there we go. Anyway, moving on to the Six Nations, and time to talk about, well, we'll talk about all three games because I think it's important, but we'll leave the post-mortem, shall we say, the dissection of England, France to last. First up, Italy, Wales. A real disappointing performance. Not that Wales won. I mean, Wales deserved to win that game. And I think they learned from the England performance against them 2 weeks previous. And they just went back to basics, brought Reece Webb back in, who had an absolutely blinding game for them, ran the game, had a few old heads, and then a few youngsters, like Tulupe Palatau and Justin Tippett, rolled back some years, Aaron Baird, Ken Owens as well. And then the youngsters worked off of it. I think the biggest problem for Italy was that they are so unaccustomed to being favourites and they just couldn't handle the pressure. And because of that, I think they tried too hard, in particular Garbisi at standoff. Instead of trusting their processes and what they did, so good so far to get close to France and England and Ireland, they just tried to push the envelope a bit too far and they came unstuck for it. Because Wales coped with it well as well, and also I will say the refereeing performance was not good. I did tweet on the day that it's obvious that Wales aren't allowed to watch this to lose this game, which I think is a little bit unfair. But the refereeing wasn't great in that game, I don't think, Barry.
No, it wasn't, and you're right about Italy. It was a shame because there were such high expectations of them, and they just didn't really turn up. And then they got themselves behind, and they started trying to push it and started trying to almost run it from everywhere. And we've seen, generally speaking, that doesn't work, particularly against a well organised and well drilled side. And for all his faults, any side that Warren Gatland puts out is going to be well organised, well drilled, and they're all going to know what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I just felt with the refereeing, there's a lot of inconsistency. Like Liam Williams got away with one takeout of the player in the air, and yet the Italians got a yellow card for one, which was no different, if not slightly less serious. And there were a few things like that you just felt they didn't get that right. And when you compare it to the performance of Luke Pearce and Christoph Ridley and Wayne Barnes in the Ireland-Scotland match, you could see the huge gulf in talent there in the refereeing, because I thought Luke Pearce had an absolutely blinding game. Missed a couple. There was a Bundyaki ankle snapper that was missed by everybody, but those things happen. But on the whole, it was a great performance from Luke Pearce.
Yeah, and the referee, it was the Italy-Wales game where Carl Dixon actually had to come in from the touchline and tell him something, and he was like, "Well, hang on a minute. If you with the greatest respect to Carl Dixon, if you happen to listen to him, then you clearly got something wrong."
Well, and Dixon did get it right as well. I mean, he talked him down from a red card, and it was never it was, I think it was the handoff or whatever, and they were talking silly stuff there, and and he talked him down to the right decision, and so that's something for them to look at. But yeah, talking about Scotland and Ireland are seriously impressive, aren't they? I mean, even with losing half of their pack in the first 10 minutes, it seems, and Cian Healy coming on and going a hooker, and that's frightening. And the way that Josh van der Fleer threw into the line out, I mean, why not go with Cian Healy as your hooker against England? I mean, that's going to be frightening. A frightening prospect, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Three props across the front row and a back row throwing into the line out just shows their versatility. At the end of the day, when you watch them, they're all comfortable on the ball. They all look like good rugby players. They all look like they could have a go at playing almost anywhere across the entire pitch. And their strength in depth is frightening. And I mean, I know Andy Farrell said jokingly afterwards that their injury crisis is so bad they might have to look for, was it the Belvedere under 12s or something, he said? And I think that's probably England's best hope, quite frankly, of getting something out of Dublin.
Well, yeah, and I mean, and as much as this made me feel quite dirty, and I did post this at the time saying, like, agreeing with Piers Morgan on the odd occasion that he does get it right. Andy Good tweeted, and as I say, I feel dirty agreeing with him, but he's 100% right when he tweeted, how good are these Ireland coaches that England sacked in 2015?
Well, rather like the French coach that England declined to employ at least on two occasions across his, or the Ireland defence coach, France defence coach, I should say, that England declined to employ on at least two different occasions over the course of his career. That well-known Frenchman, Sean Edwards.
Sean Edwards. Yeah, I mean, it's
Eduardo.
Yeah, and Andy O'Farrell and Mike O'Cat. Yeah, it's the English RFU have got to sit back and take stock of themselves, because I think they have mismanaged almost as badly as the Welsh Rugby Union have mismanaged their game. And Bill Sweeney, really, I mean, the problem is you've got amateurs at the top of the game running the game, and it's all about the beers and the being seen at the ground and the club tie and all of that. And we need some professionalism in there. And that's come out hugely in the England-France performance. There's so much. Steve Borthwick, quite rightly, is going to take a bit of grief over this one. Well, I think the only grief that Steve Borthwick should be taking is the fact that he listened to the armchair coaches and the media and allowed them to pick the team to play France. Instead of continuing what we'd done good against Italy and Wales, which was to have a back to basics, clear game plan that was executed accurately, he listened to Lawrence Delalio and Will Kelleher and all the rest of them and said, Marcus Smith's got to play because the only way he can beat France is by throwing the ball around.
Yeah.
And it was, I take no pleasure in this whatsoever. And I actually feel for Marcus Smith in a big, big way. But I predicted this would happen. I said exactly how he would play. And he did exactly as I said he would play. And it was just, I don't know where to start, really. I mean, Marcus did, at 10, did one of three things. He either took the ball, and bearing in mind in the first half as first receiver, he only took the first receipt 2 or 3 times, I think it was. But on those occasions, he then runs sideways and tries to go through the gap himself. And Charles Olivon and Jonathan Dante and Gail Fickou just sat there, created a wall and said, go on and give it a go. He hit it, because the England pack was being ripped apart all over the place. They then turned him over. Number one, he did. And in doing that, he cut down on the space for Ollie Lawrence to come on. Or he gave Ollie Lawrence the ball to crash, but unlike when Owen Farrell does it and takes the ball to the gain line and invites the hit and takes the hit and pops late into the gap so that Ollie Lawrence or whoever's playing crash ball takes the ball on the gain line and busts. He was giving it to Ollie Lawrence 5 yards back, and Gail Fickou's taken out a cigar and a glass of cognac and said, I'll have this before I have to tackle you. And then when that didn't work, he kicks away aimlessly, absolutely aimlessly, to the extent that, I mean, the one prime example would be the free kick where he just booed it in the air right on the 22, excuse me, and into Thomas Ramos's arms. It was just dull rugby.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we could do an entire show on the ineptitude of the RFU, and perhaps we'll do that one later on in the season, because I've certainly got some things I could say about that. But Saturday was a mess. Saturday, unfortunately, was no more than a symptom of where we are as a nation, I think, in terms of our players. Some of our players really aren't that good, to be quite honest with you. And certainly not at international level, and they're nowhere near the French level. And then we have the brilliant idea of not only changing the side, but telling France exactly how we're going to play in the press 3 days before the bloody match. I mean, we said we were going to try and run them off their feet, and they just went, well, you're not going to, clearly. They they spoiled at the breakdown. They were very, very good, very physical. We just seemed, I was watching some bits of it again this morning, and we didn't really seem to be competing at the breakdown, but they certainly were. They were making sure that they slowed our ruck speed down. JVP at 9 is not really quick enough for me, I don't think. No. I think we're going to need to find it, but who are we going to put in there? I mean, we've tried 3 or 4 different 9s over the last couple of years, and none of them seem to be quite up to it. I mean, Mitchell's probably the best of the bunch that we've got at the moment, but he's quite error prone, so I'm not sure where we go from there. Marcus Smith is not. If you're going to play Marcus Smith, sides are going to run at him because he only tackles in one direction, and that's the same way that I used to tackle when I played a few games in my latter years, and that was backwards. I mean, basically, you sort of fall under the player and hope to bring him down as he runs over you almost. And Smith's tackling is not up to spec. His attacking play is not anywhere near as good, and we've just created this daft situation where I don't know. We're trying to, as you say, letting the pundits pick the team. I don't know. Reacting to it. I don't know. It just looks like a mess. And it all goes back to the RFU. I mean, whether Steve Borthwick's the right man or not, I don't know. But they hung on to Eddie Jones for a year or so, longer than they should have done, at least, in my opinion, and then sacked him with no clear idea of what to do next. So we're going to reap what we sow. I mean, the under-20s were handed their backsides on a plate on Friday night as well by the French.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is surprising considering how many of our team who went out on Friday night were under 20s who could have played as well. And well, there is something seriously wrong in English rugby at the RFU, and that has been for years and years and years and years and years. And it's the same as the Welsh RFU and the Scottish RFU as well. I mean, the Scottish RFU haven't covered themselves in glory either in recent times. Couple of players. One, Alex Donbrandt. He's overweight, he's out of shape, and he hasn't got the skills to play at test match intensity. Billy Vunipola, this is good. The good games for Billy Vunipola to miss because, like Owen Farrell, you work out how important he is in these situations. Ellis Genge is not a captain. I said it before. When Ellis Genge concentrates on being Baby Rhino, he's the best loose heads, along with Andrew Porter, in the world. When you add other stuff to his game, it goes out the window, and he couldn't talk to the referee in any way whatsoever. It improved when Farrell came on because, they got a conversation going. But Genge just was a bit petulant schoolboy, I thought. But there was so Henry Slade should be nowhere near an England shirt, I don't think. I worry about Max Malins. I don't think Max really covered himself in any glory whatsoever. And when you got Harry Arundel around, you got Ollie Hossel-Collins coming back in, you got Adam Radwan, even Johnny May, I think they're better than Max. It's very, very difficult to say who impressed. I will say Jamie George impressed, mainly because he played 80 minutes, and that's the third game that he's played 80 minutes. And considering that he was injured at the start of this Six Nations, he's put in some big shifts. Maratoji impressed because he was the only forward who actually won turnovers. But he got penalised too much, but that was because he was doing it all on his flipping own again. And Mitchell and Farrell impressed when they came on, I felt. Alex Mitchell upped the pace and should start against Ireland. And Farrell just got the defence organised right up until the point we suddenly started losing centres, and you had to put Alex Donbrandt at outside centre, which I think Debbie Knight, our friend who's been on the first cast before, pointed out. If you've got Ben Earl on the bench, and Stuart Barnes is actually advocating playing Ben Earl at inside centre against Ireland from the start, but Ben would have come on and actually played that position and not looked so as exposed as Alex Donbrandt did. And yeah, it was crazy, really. So, I mean, where do we go from here? All I want to see against Ireland now is I think we go back to basics. You pick Farrell at 10. Lawrence is out, so you bring back Tuilagi now. I'd look at Alex Lazowski instead of Henry Slade. I would be looking at Johnny May. I would be looking at starting Dan Cole. I might even start Johnny Hill because Ollie Chesson seems to have gone backwards a little bit. For George Cruz being fit. But you just go back on and you compete. We're not going to beat Ireland. Ireland are going to win the Grand Slam. But what I want to see England do on Saturday is make Ireland work hard for that Grand Slam.
I don't think we're going to get anywhere near Ireland. But what worries me, and I've thought this for a while now, but back to the autumn internationals when I sat at one of them and watched it live, I'm loath to say it in a way, but I don't think there's much pride in the team at the moment. I won't pick out individuals because that would be unfair, but they don't look like a team who are particularly interested in representing their country. And something isn't right there. And I'm not too sure what it is, but what we're saying really is that we'd like to see a bit of fight and a bit of dog and a bit of spirit about them. But we've not seen any of that in the previous games so far. Even when they've been winning, they've not really seemed that spirited to me. So I do worry about Saturday. I think it could be embarrassing, quite frankly.
Well, yeah, I think it could be. It's a case of keep the engine running on the coach. And if we have to disappear at half-time, I don't think too many people will complain. I mean, yeah, horrible stuff. Look, let's end it there, Barry, because otherwise, we'll be crying into our cup of tea or whatever, and say, look, yeah, let's just hope we get a performance on Saturday. Next week we'll be back. I'm waiting on Ollie to confirm a guest in the build-up to the showdown at the Tottenham Stadium. I should have been interested again, won't it? Because the one thing, if you're Marcus Smith and you've come off of a couple of humbling performances, I don't think the last team you want to play against is a Saracens team with all their superstars back, is it?
No, but that could be an interesting game, actually. If both sides go fully loaded, then we could get a decent game of rugby out of that. It's a cracking stadium. If you've not been before, it is a bit of a trek, but get yourselves there if you can. Over 45,000 tickets now sold, I believe. So should be a decent attendance and a decent atmosphere, and let's hope for a good game of rugby.
Well, absolutely. Well, look, Barry, thank you for your time again. And I say thank you to Joe and Donna Rose for their time in talking to us as well. And so we'll see you next week for the next edition of the Fezcast.
Cheers all.
Thanks a lot.
This is the Fezcast.